Hello, I am Ash. I work as a warlock here to do spells, readings, and alignments. Or helping alignment. Monkey fighting snakes. So today, we're going to talk about something a little kooky. You are a Philosopher Stone. Okay, represented by this jelly bean. You are the jelly bean. So, it's gonna be a little weird, little off topic, kind of on topic, off topic. We'll just get into it. I even had to make notes for this one. Look at me doing lesson plans. So, what is the Philosopher's Stone? And I'm actually gonna pull in fullmetalalchemist Brotherhood. If you guys have ever seen that or heard of it, it's a really good anime in my opinion. But the whole show, and are you ready for this? Spoilers, like hardcore spoilers, I'm gonna go to the end of the show. So if you haven't seen it, go watch it. Unless you're okay with mild spoilers, whatever. But it's basically a story about a young boy in a world of alchemy. And he decides to explore it. Now again, I'm not going to go into super detail, but this kid decides to explore alchemy. And what happens is, upon doing so, he discovers this thing called the truth. Yeah, it's actually represented as a giant door with the tree of life on it, which is used in alchemic symbols. Actually, the fundamental of alchemy. So you see him pass through this door, and he sees the quote-unquote truth. Well, in the show, those who can see the truth actually get an upgrade when they're doing alchemy. What I mean is, most alchemists in the show have to draw a transmutation circle, or some form of sigil, and actually put their magic into the symbol, and it forms something. But these people who have seen the truth can actually transmute without the circle. Interesting, right? But in that show, which is a natural conservation of energy, is the law of energy is you can't destroy or create. There's always energy, and it's just there. You can't destroy the energy, you can't create it, it just turns into something else. So like paper. When you burn paper, the paper doesn't disappear. Technically it does, and it gets turned into something else. Its energy burns up, and it becomes vapor, smoke, ashes, and dust. Whatever else paper turns into. So technically, the atomic structure is gone, and the paper's no longer paper, but the energy itself just moved. Where are we going for this? So, they could never go beyond that structure of, for instance, there was a scene that plays out, a nurse drops a plate, and one of them draws a circle, the brother who didn't see the truth, a brother draws a circle, puts the broken plate in there, and turns it into an apple. Well, equivalent of exchange, it's that much energy. I don't actually have a formula as to how energy conservation changes, but I'm sure there is one. But even in current standings, the Philosopher's Stone was perceived in our modern religion, modern society, as a stone that could possibly take standard metal or base metals, such as iron and cobalt and stuff like that, and transform it into gold or silver. Essentially, this little stone allows you to bypass the rules of reality, quote unquote. So everyone in the show was trying to create or find this sought after Philosopher's Stone. Now, in the show, they may have truly eventually figured out how to make one, and it could actually be possibly true because they actually crafted it from people. Here's the interesting concept. is they actually try to make people into the Philosopher's Stone. Like, it's a really dark and messed up anime, but it's good. But what they actually do is there's some experiments where they fuse people with these fake stones or these philosopher stones to give them the power up because they want the ability, to neglect the laws of physics. And in the end of the show, the main bad guy ends up actually becoming that. He essentially becomes God. And he is able to bypass the laws of reality and so on and so forth, and ends up almost becoming a pure God entity. Luckily, his body was not a real philosopher's stone, so eventually he broke down because his body couldn't handle it. You get the picture here? So what if that show is actually partially true? What if we are the stone we've been trying to create? Now follow me here. Here's some actual science behind it, and when I say science, I don't have a PhD. I'm just a dude with a fucking whiteboard. It's just... and a big imagination. A dude with a whiteboard and a big imagination. I'm trying to make sure I'm not, burning my board. So here's some actual proposed theory, science behind why I believe that. So I actually was reading this book called The Gaia Effect, which is a non-religious view on how the world was created. It is proposed the Earth itself is a giant crystal. Part of this is me putting words, so I'm not directly quoting the book, but I got the idea from the book. So it's proposed the Earth is a giant crystal. Space rock. Minerals. Crystals. Literally, they say it's made from space dust. Well, you do studies, what's space dust? It's minerals, it's rocks, it's crystals. Okay, so you got this one big Earth that's one gigantic rock crystal. In fact, it even says it was pelted by meteors time and time and time again, and that's how we actually got our outer crust, our layers, to the Earth. So over time, you get what I'm saying. The Earth became a refined and repolished crystal. Da-da-da-da-da. Cooled off into atoms, which bonded into crystal or lattices. I don't know how to pronounce this word, but Lattices. Lattices. Which is a periodic repeating arrangement of points in a space. So essentially imagine, kind of like the coordinate grid. The grid that goes across the global grid that allows us to do X, Y, Z, and the coordinates, GPS coordinates. Imagine that. Imagine that grid being the electrical circuit, and all those points are the lattices, whatever. The conjunction points is what they are. Now, if you actually do believe in religion, Genesis, the book of Genesis, quite literally says the hand of God came down and scooped up some of the earth. Alright, so whether it's literal or not, they're saying we're made from the same thing as the earth. But we've got some extra elements like carbon, which I think there may be some carbon in the earth, just not as much. But carbon is actually the primary thing that allows us to be as flexible as we are. That's why we're not just rigid crystal rock people. Carbon allows us the flexibility, basically, the fluid. A lot of this I'm just kind of pulling out of my butt. But, guess what? Where else can you find carbon? Up in the stars, up in the space, up in, literally, space itself. You can fly around and there's just fragments of carbon. It's just, putting together the dots here. Alright. Where are the rest of my notes? So here's the reason. Humans, their bodies, are crystalline entities because our bones, our water, which we're 70% water, and as we all know, water freezes, and guess what? Because of the nature of water itself, It freezes and becomes a crystalline structure. Snowflakes. Ice cubes. Blah. So, this water is inside of us. We are 70% water. Okay. And then the other 30% is rock, or crystal, dirt, carbon. So the water, the DNA, and our nervous system all form resonant lattices. I'm going to say it's... I want a funny word for it, but we'll just call them energy vortexes. Whatever. The vortex. It's the same thing. Yeah. So essentially a repeating regular arrangement of points in space. That is how our body moves energy. Ready? Through those electrical points. Through those nexuses. Or else we wouldn't be able to have any kind of electrical impulse or system. A crystalline structure is one of the only... let's put it this way. Computers. Computers are the same thing. The motherboards, they have crystals inside of them. The silicon, the zinc, the carbon, all the metals that we put in there, that's what makes it such a brilliant deductor. We are essentially an organic computer. Alright. So now let's actually get back how that ties into the... I was going to say something completely random. Brotherhood, the anime. Well, so, think of it this way. Alchemy... Wow, I can't believe I didn't actually write that one down. The true bit of alchemy, though, is actually self-reflection and self-growth. It's turning energy into something else. Well, guess what? Humans do that on a regular basis. Emotions. Emotions are motion, energy in motion. So think of it this way. Most people are conduits or storage facilities because they're not aware that they can transfer or change energy. We just do it subconsciously without knowing it. So say for instance, the most basic thing I can think of is say someone's trying to be an asshole, someone's trying to be a goblin. We'll put it that way. Someone's trying to be a goblin and transfer their negative energy off onto you because they're so angry, they want you to be angry. And then that's when we receive the energy and we absorb it. And then we pass it on. Well, that's not necessarily alchemy, that's just energy transference. So to be an alchemist, it's to actually take that energy and turn it into something else. So quote unquote, I keep saying quote unquote. Specifically, what I mean to say is, for instance, those kids who, here's a good example. If you've seen a show called Soul Eater, there's a character who constantly hypes himself up. I'm the best, I'm the greatest, I'm the best. But he's not doing it from an ego standpoint. Everyone else thinks he is. Everyone's like, dude, you're so full of yourself. Well, someone in the teachers goes, no. What he's doing is he's hyping himself up. He's giving himself energy. Even in a tough situation, he turns around and goes, you know what? I got this. It's because I'm awesome. I'm good. I'm strong. Essentially, he is taking whatever energy is being thrown at him and transferring it, not just transferring it, but alchemizing it into something else. Okay, so you think of that. So, let's go on a bigger scale. Negative experiences. Say, trauma. Trauma is stored energy in our body. Our mind, our spirit, it's actually stored in our body, as we just got done saying, because our body is a energy conduit. It stores energy, it moves energy, it holds energy, and if we don't let it go, it sticks with us and gets literally ingrained in our DNA. So, people don't think about it, but that's because we're not told about it. People are basically batteries. We're basically batteries. However, those of us who understand how the battery works, is you change from being a storage unit to a flowing unit. And that may not make sense. But like, for instance, bad situations or trauma. That holds a specific key frequency, key trauma, like abuse. I'm just going to use abuse because that's unfortunately something that was in my life. So those are patterns, energetic patterns. I really hope I'm connecting the dots in a coherent way. Those are energetic patterns that get stored in our subconscious and in our body. The body has a subconscious mind. Whether you believe it or not, the body remembers. Although it doesn't know that it remembers, it subconsciously does remember. So physical abuse, your body fucking remembers that. That's why you flinch. Mostly. I mean, flinching is a normal reaction, but those who have been, physically assaulted, their body remembers it, so they flinch, and they react, and they're like, It's a really tough topic to touch on. I know abuse is a big taboo, no, but it's the one that I could think of off the top of my head. Because it's something I live with, I don't like hugs. I don't like people touching me. Why? Because my body remembers what happened. Because the only touch I used to get was negative. So, your body remembers that. Okay? So now this is where you become an alchemist. This is where you become the Philosopher's Stone. Is now you take that energy, that, ready for this, dense or base level energy, and you turn it into something else. Because in reality, you just hold on to that energy, you hold on to that pain, and it plays out in your nervous system until you finally let it go. So that is when you transfer from the battery to an alchemist. Because as of this point, it's like, okay, so I've got this energy looping in my system, and I don't necessarily like it. So I'm going to change it. We're going to change the energy that's looping in my system, because I don't like it. Okay? So now let's turn it. Now, I'm not actually going to go into psychology and stuff and be like, well, this is how you get over your trauma. No, that's not what this video is about. I may try to do one of those videos. I'm a little sketchy on whether or not I should talk about that stuff, because again, I don't have a PhD, and I'm scared of saying something that people just don't understand. But if I feel called to it, I'll do it. So that energy continues to loop until you realize, and then you change it into something else. Well, let's go back to that whole base metal. Well, let's go with base metal. What is one of the copper? Copper is super dense. Iron is super dense. Very thick metal. Well, copper is actually pretty buoyant, but I'm just messing up some points here. Basically, you're taking these dense energies and transferring it into something. Now, technically, gold and silver are still physically heavy, but it's taking this perceived energy that's quote-unquote not worth as much or not as valuable and changing it into something that is worth more value. However, it goes a little deeper than that. It actually means light. Because again, if everything is energy, everything is light. So you're essentially taking these lower level energies and turning it into golden energy, golden light, which is perceived as healing. Healing energy, healing light. Well, you gotta be all crooked. It really bugs my OCD. 19 minutes into the whatever. But the reason that we aren't able to access this within ourselves is because our energy pools, our chakras, are closed. And we actually need those to transfer and transmute this energy. Because what you actually do is you take the energy and you pass it through the pools of chakra, and it moves through your body. However, if you're not doing meditative work and stuff like that, the energy becomes stagnant and basically screws you over. That's why kidney stones, I ended up getting kidney stones. Because for the longest time, my root chakra, my sacral chakra, and basically all of my chakras are effed up and out of alignment. So when that happens and the energy is not moving, you get physically sick. The energy sticks with you and continues to pile up as bio. Basically, toxic energy. And if you don't move it, you become sick. It becomes stagnant, and either it keeps looping in your body, or it actually wrecks your system. So how you become a Philosopher's Stone is opening all your chakras and meditation. This actually leads into manifestation as well, which I will have to do a whole separate video. But what if that show wasn't too far gone, too far off the mark? I recommend going back. In fact, I'm going to go back and rewatch the show to get a better understanding. But there's some very esoteric and I don't know what I would want to say, but there's another word coming to mind. But it's got some truth in there that I never noticed the first time. But now that I go back, I'm like, wait a minute. Interesting. So a society that believes, and this is the funny part, is the guy who ends up seeing the truth and becoming the one who defeats this false god, ends up actually becoming the truth. He gives up his alchemy. He gives up his powers because he learned the truth. He was able to see what it was worth. And despite it, he transcended and grew and continued to grow. In fact, he was a completely different person by the end of the show. He actually had character growth in the show. Oh, I'm out of water. Ugh. So by the end of the show, he actually grew up and was a completely different person. Oh, sorry, apparently I was thirsty. And that's actually the true path of alchemy, is recognizing these elements within you. And that's what alchemy was based off, these 4 elements. Technically 5. Earth, which is your body. Water, which is your emotion, or the part of the method that allows energy to flow. Ooh, hold on. Earth, water, air, which is quite literally life. We breathe air, we move air, we use air, talking goes through air. 4, fire, which is our, I was going to say spirit, but it's more like our willpower. More like our emotions, our energy, the fire within us. Okay? It's physical body, water body, which is our emotions, spiritual or willpower, which is our, our drive, air, which is essentially life, and then 5th, which is our spirit, the energy that literally drives our body, this 4 elemental body that we're running through. So whenever somebody has an understanding and a mastery of all 4 or 5 elements, kind of like the Avatar, they unlock, quote-unquote, powers. You can manipulate the energy. I think I'm officially done. I think everything I wanted to say is out, because I'm officially roasting like a duck. Man, I get so warm when I do these channels. So, yeah, just kind of tying the knot back in together. We are literally walking crystals. We absorb energy every day. Take back your power and start intentionally shaping the energy around you. Do not forget, we have the ability to modify energy. What I'm saying is, if you're having a bad day, you don't have to be stuck in a bad day. You can move those emotions. You can let them go. This is coming from someone who used to allow things ruin my day for days. Like, say, I had a friend at work and maybe I'd be mad at him for like 3 or 4 days over something that, whether or not was silly, felt very real to me, and I was able to be angry for days. That anger, that energy would sit in my body for days. So I only know what I'm talking about because I'm speaking from experience. No, again, no PhDs, I'm not a doctor. In fact, I'm technically a college dropout. However, whatever I speak of is from personal information. Normally. There is some research I have to do. But, anyways. There you have it. A little far-fetched. However, one thing I just saw, it actually does give you the elixir to life. Whether you believe it or not. That may actually have to be a whole nother topic. But because then, once you realize how being sick works, you don't really get sick anymore. As long as you understand how energy works, you don't really get sick. So, I mean, that's quote-unquote where you get this elixir of life, is because you understand energy and you just kind of start living your life. You're not functioning from that lower level anymore, or the base level. And that base level would get sick because it didn't know how to move the energy. I just feel like I'm beating a dead horse as of this point. So, you know what? You go beat your own horse. Have a great day.